Trying to get Bonnie to trade shawls with me, but she's not buying. I don't know why, just because hers is silk and bamboo and hand-woven by a master weaver. No reason to covet it. Good morning, everybody. Really nice to see y'all here. I'm practicing. My beloved husband tells me that I'm the most woo-woo person that he's ever met, which I think is funny because I know people who are like way more woo-woo than I am any day of the week. Loosely, the definition of woo-woo being beliefs about the nature of reality which may not be scientifically provable, but which seem to perform an important role no matter how weird they sound. So I prefer to think of myself as a practical woo-woo. And I think it's a great fit for science of mind. See, we've got these beliefs and these tools, and they might sound funny, woo-woo, at first, but once you learn to use them, they not only make you feel better, but there will be discernible, distinct improvements in your life, thus making them quite practical. So to the layman, the formal study and certification of this is called practical woo-woo, or in our circles, a religious science practitioner. As Bonnie mentioned, the topic for this month is 'Tis the Season. 'Tis the season to be jolly, to love our fellow man, to forgive. But being a practical woo-woo practitioner, I really have to ask, when is it not the season? Like, is it really just the 12 days of Christmas? The season is now. Because there is no other when. It is now. The time of year can feel tricky. I mean, is there any other time that evokes such anticipation and dread in the hearts of man? It's a time of peace and goodwill, filled with weird, hard, and stressful. And there's been so much put on Christmas over the generations that I honestly think it's a wonder people find their way through it at all sometimes. Even in the most loving and fun-filled scenario, folks get out the other side and they're like, whew, thank God that's over. What a marathon. So, there's something about Christmas that just puts a lot of force on us and from a lot of different directions. So how do we keep goodwill and peace on earth alive all year round if we're finding just the 12 days of Christmas tricky? And as every good practical woo-woo practitioner knows, the answer to that is Santa magic. It's coming. During this Christmas season, we try to find a balance between goodwill for all mankind and watching two mothers duking it out over the last new spectacular every 6-year-old simply has to have it or Christmas is going to be absolutely ruined toy that's just come on the market. And I don't underestimate the power of this one. When my youngest son was about 6, he was just all about Woody from Toy Story, along with every other kid in North America. And late fall that year, I found one at Toys R Us. It was the last one. They said they had them back-ordered. They didn't even know if they'd be getting more, and I grabbed it. It was not kind of in my budget, but I grabbed it. And I called my ex-husband, and I said, hey, I just bought what's possibly the last Woody doll in the whole city, so, take it off the list. It's handled. Well, that year, the kids were at my ex-husband's and his wife's place first, and then I would get them at noon. And when he dropped them off, Chris came running up the sidewalk, clutching his new prize, a brand new Woody doll. And I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, how could they have done that? I told them. And I was pretty upset about that one. I'm not proud to report that I carried that bad boy around for a long, long time before I considered some other possibilities. Like, Maybe my ex-husband, who wasn't really always 100% reliable at passing on messages, maybe he forgot to tell his wife. And maybe she just went out and bought the things she knew the little boy wanted the most. And maybe it was about the child getting his Christmas wish and not his mom having more points than the stepmom. Yeah. And of course, there were other dynamics at play, but the bottom line is I chose to think the worst. I chose it, and I held it. There's a Buddhist teaching which is called not self. It doesn't roll off the tongue really all that easily, but it's called not self. And it explores the nature of objects, ourselves, and others. And it says that in essence, nothing, including you and me, exists in and of itself as a single permanent thing. We sort of think of ourselves as, this is who I am, and sometimes we'll defend that to the death. But we are constantly in a state of change. So what does it mean to say, this is who I am, I'm going to be, hold that thought, and don't move because I'm still mad at you. In this state, we can't call ourselves, capital R, real. And real is defined from a spiritual standpoint as the unchanging. From the trillions of cells that make up the body to the endless processes that create thoughts and beliefs and emotions and reactions and yada yada, we aren't a static object, but rather a work in progress. We are in a constant state of shift. Even rocks undergo constant change. So, we think we're all high and mighty. We're just like a rock. So what is real? What are the divine attributes that we can call capital R, real? I know in another talk I mentioned having two hooks on the wall, and one hook you put on everything that's transient or whatever, and the other hook you put on what's real, and then you see what you want to hold on to at the end of the day. According to Holmes, we can look at the love and the law. That's a really good, simple foundation. What is real? The love and the law. And as Bob read, the two great commandments are to love God and our brother man. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? It seems more pronounced at Christmas somehow that we see prayers for global peace duking it out with unrest all over the world. And in our own backyards, we plan our festive gatherings, and all the while we see people who are alone or grieving or who are living in difficult circumstances. And they're doing their best to connect with an idea of joy and goodwill while celebrations and movies about happy families at Christmas and all this stuff swirl around them. But I bet a lot of those people would tell you it feels darn difficult sometimes. And even those who appear to have it all struggle with their own demons. Things might look perfect from the outside, but they're not necessarily going that easy on the inside. So now we're back to how the heck do we keep the spirit of Christmas alive, not just in December, but all year round? How do we practice love? It starts with presence. We start now, because there is no other when. There's only now. I put a lot of effort into being a person who projects into the world the things that I consider valuable. I try to monitor my thinking. I try to dismiss negative thoughts. I correct my behavior if I see that I'm being a weenie. I ask myself, am I upholding the best version of myself right now? Am I breathing? There's one I have to remind myself about a lot. Have you breathed lately? No! Am I present? I try to share beauty and practice gratitude, and I'm constantly trying to evolve that inner climate of love. And These are the things that I strive for because I believe it helps raise the vibration of the world. Even if I'm just picking up groceries, if I interact with people in a friendly and authentic manner, they respond with their open hearts. And then that's the takeaway we all have. And I know we've all experienced the other side. You go out and somebody's just, and, they're having a crappy day. And they project their doo-doo all over the place. And then we respond with our stuff, oh yeah. And, before you know it, 100 people have been poisoned. Doesn't take very long, does it? But the person who leads with the heart, with love and compassion, can start a revolution of goodwill. It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? A revolution of goodwill. So let's start there. Let's start now. Ernest Holmes said, "We should be wise in the ways of the world as well as imbued with divine wisdom." He means we have to practice discernment and truth and let everything else fall away. If we focus on what is real, on that which is unchanging, then the unreal falls away. As Bob read, the student of truth will receive all that comes in the name of the Lord, all that is of the truth, and all else will fall by its own weight. There's a lot in that statement. And I think of it like gathering grain. You go to the field that you have sown. You thresh the wheat to loosen the grain from the husk, or the gold from the rock, or the truth from the words. This is our spiritual practice. It's discernment. And then we winnow. Gather only the grain and let the wind carry the chaff and return it to its native nothingness. Let error return to its native nothingness. In this way, we very much get to choose how we feel about the events around us. We get to focus on what's real and just let the rest move out of focus. The egoic mind is filled with input from an endless variety of sources from the second we're born. And those ideas will often just sit there and percolate for days or years or a lifetime. And they color how we perceive everything, and they color what goes on inside and out. Like the story about my ex's wife buying the Woody doll for my son. What are the stories that we tell ourselves? Are they true? How do we know they're true? Have we put any of them to the litmus test to see if it's really true or not? Or do we just go, and then after that, boy, you wouldn't believe what she did next. Don't believe everything you think. And don't be afraid to change what you think. What is this almighty hang? It's my thought. I have it. It's mine. Therefore, it must be right. And I'm not giving it up, and you can't make me. Ever. And then I don't care if it's working for me or not. So there. In a previous talk, I spoke about filling the mind with beauty, and it's not so that you can, pretend not to see the unfairnesses in the world or not have discernment or, whatever. It's to grow an inner climate of peace so that you will be better prepared to send love to those events and those people which appear unlovable. Make friends with uncertainty. You might not know what's ahead, but you can know with absolute certainty that it'll be for you. And if you know with certainty that what's coming up will be for you, guess what? It'll be for you. Because you've believed it and made it so. It'll be for you. Hold that in your consciousness like no other thought. We talk about the magic of Christmas, but are we really trying to say that the rest of the year is a dud? There's Christmas! And then there's 11 and a half months of getting ready for Christmas! And then another. When a friend of mine was about 8 years old, He told me this story years ago, and I love it. He was about 8 years old, and I think he just turned 70, so this was at the time when 8 was still really 8, not 16 going on 21. And the kids at school told him something he really didn't want to hear. They told him that there's no Santa. And the proof? Reindeer can't fly. And his face fell, and he was like, that's right, reindeer can't fly. And he was devastated. And he raced home, and he ran in the house and ran past his parents and up to his room, and he's just sobbing. And then all of a sudden, he just had this awakening, and he ran back downstairs. And, his mystified parents are still looking at him. And he ran downstairs, and he said, I've got it. I know how they do it. I know how the reindeer fly. Magic. Well, not long after that, I had to rely very heavily on that story. I was a single parent, and I had to be pretty creative about some of my Christmas gifts. So that year, I had found this beat-up old wooden chest at a thrift shop, and it had been somebody's tool chest. It was covered in oil and stuff. So I cleaned it up, sanded it down, I revarnished it, and I filled it with pirate treasure. There was gold goblets and chains and pearls and a grown-up handful size of precious gems, which I actually released from my grandmother's Victorian wartime jewelry. So I'm still really praying that was paste, because they buried it in the yard. A friend helped make a couple of pirate outfits. Those were really cool, and they got eye patches. And another friend bought real, authentic plastic pistols. And it was awesome. And another friend, the year before, had given the children this boxed set of letters from Santa, handwritten in this beautiful script on this paper that was like a spider's web. And so the kids knew what Santa's handwriting looked like, because they still had this box set. So I got him to write one more letter. It said, Dear Andrew and Christopher, many years ago, Peter Pan hid the treasure he took from Captain Hook, and rightfully so, I might add, and hid it with me at the North Pole to keep it safe. And I've been waiting for the right children to give it to, and I believe that you are those children. Now you must look after it. Love from Santa. Well, that whole thing, I have to tell you, went over far better than I could possibly have planned. And they began their glory days as the bestest and baddest and cutest pirates. Oh man, they were amazing. But over the following months, things started to get a little tricky, because there were a lot of questions about Santa and Peter Pan and Captain Hook, and sort of perpetuating the fantasy had moved over into bald-faced lying, and I was getting really uncomfortable with it. And then, it was just getting to that turning point for them. I didn't know how to handle it. About the same time, I was in a state where bills were piling up. We didn't have a lot of money, and I was getting really tired of, no, honey, we can't afford that right now, and scrimping and all that good stuff. So I was sitting at the table one night, and there might have been a small amount of leakage, because I, felt a little bit sorry for this situation. And my eldest son came in, and he dumped that whole treasure on the floor, and he said, Here, Mommy, I want you to have this, to help pay for the house. Okay. And I couldn't do it. It just felt like the thing that was one step too far in the story. I had to clean it up. So I told him it wasn't really a bona fide pirate treasure. Peter and Santa didn't kind of really get together much. And I explained that Santa wasn't exactly the way that that we had talked about. He's not a jolly man in a red suit. He's more of an idea, something that I call Santa magic. And Santa magic is what helps mums and dads get exactly the right present, and what helps people get together and make food and sing Christmas carols. And it was what made him offer me his treasure. That's Santa magic. Well, I ran that car till it ran out of gas. And he sat on the floor and he was just looking at this mound of treasure. You mean it's not really from Captain Hook? No, honey. Oh, Mommy, I told everybody. I could have used a healthy dose of Santa magic myself in that particular moment, I have to tell you. Difficult parenting moment 107. Fast forward a decade. He's not 7 anymore, he's 17. It's the middle of December, and he is suddenly very ill. And he had developed a very rare autoimmune disorder, and so he's in the hospital, and they're telling us all the things you never, ever, ever want to hear if you're a parent. And he came home about 2 days before Christmas with a shopping bag, I kid you not, a shopping bag full of medication and 0 guarantees. I was needing a little Santa magic then, too. And I think I've skipped a whole thing here. Yes. My mom came to visit that year, of course. And she and I went over to the mall to just do some last-minute shopping. And there was one of those, when they take an empty store and they turn it into Santa's workshop, and we double dog dared each other to sit on his lap. And she went first, because I tried to get out of it. And it turns out that I was wrong. Bonnie's got a picture to show you. I was wrong all those years ago, because there is a Santa. This is the actual authentic Santa. And I have to tell you that this is the best photo I've ever seen of my mom. My mom was really English, and she sort of had one of those internal tapes about looking dreadful. Oh my, I look dreadful today. And so every photograph ever taken of her, she looks like this. She does not look like that. Her head's back and she's smiling. She's holding his hand. I'm blown away every time I look at that. She would have been 96 today. Thanks, Mom. Anyway, when it was my turn, I sat on Santa's lap, and he said, "And ho, 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 and what would you like for Christmas?" And he sounded just like the letter. It's really cool. And I said, my son is ill, and I want him to be better. And he just said, crap, I don't usually do this. And he put down his pretend Santa, and he picked up another one that I'd never seen before. And he said, okay, this is really important. Does your son really, really, really want to be better? And I said, yes, I'm sure he does. He said, this is important. You must ask him this question. I will, as soon as I get home. He said, okay, and if he says yes, then tonight at bedtime, what he must do is... I got nothing. I don't remember a single word the man said, but that day I did, and I went home and I said, Andrew, okay, weird, I know, woo-woo, but I met Santa today, and he said, and I told him what to do, and I don't know, maybe he remembered about Santa magic, or maybe I just seemed particularly earnest, or maybe he was frightened because I'd finally completely lost it, but he agreed to do the thing. And something shifted, and we all felt it. I don't know what to tell you. Santa. On Boxing Day, I went back to that mall because I knew Santa's not going to be there on Boxing Day. Of course, he's only here for Christmas. But I had a need to kind of confirm the space, to validate the space. And this is the part where you're going to think that Doug's right, that I am the most woo-woo person you've ever heard of, but I knew that mall really well. And I went up and down every single row of stores in that mall, and there was no empty storefront, there was no North Pole, there was no nothing. So between Christmas Eve and Boxing Day, they took Santa's workshop, and they completely emptied it and filled it up with a store. I got nothing for you. One day, my son was dying, and seemingly the next day he was well, with no physical evidence of having been ill. And I always felt like it was a combination of things that resulted in what I still call a miraculous healing: his own mind and prayers from around the world, good medical assistance, a lot of vibrational work, and Santa magic. It's like certain elements came together in his body and created this perfect storm. And then all these other things came together to prove perfection. Because that's the capital R real truth of the matter. Works within, work out. That's Santa magic. That's the bigger picture. And that's what you can hold in your heart and your mind to keep in alignment to greet the next year. I recently got a thing sent to me by email by another practical woo-woo named Daniel Laporte. And she had a whole list of things, but I think they're wonderful reminders, wonderful things to hold on to as we think about the upcoming year. And as we think about how to hold ourselves in a position that will enable us to approach that year in the best possible light. Right now, there are Tibetan Buddhist monks in a temple in the Himalayas endlessly reciting mantras for the cessation of your suffering and for the flourishing of your happiness. Did you know that someone was doing that in your name? Someone you haven't met yet is already dreaming of adoring you. I like that idea. I like being adored. Nuns in the Alps are in endless vigil praying for the Holy Spirit to alight the hearts of all of God's children. A farmer is looking at his organic crops and whispering, "Nourish them." Something is being invented this year that will change how our generation lives, communicates, heals, and passes on. And in this very moment, the next great song is being rehearsed. Thousands of people are in yoga classes all over the world right now, and they are intentionally sending light out from their heart chakras and wrapping it around the earth. And I think if we sit still and go within, we can feel that. Millions of children are assuming that everything is amazing and will always be that way. Santa magic. Someone is in profound pain, but a few months from now, they'll be thriving like never before. They just can't see it yet. Someone has recently cracked open their joyous, genuine nature because they did the hard work of hauling years of oppression off of their psyche. And this juju's floating around out in the ethers. We can all get it. Some civil servant is making sure you get your mail, your garbage is picked up, that the trains are running on time, and that you have clean drinking water, and that you're generally safe. Someone is regaining their sanity. Someone is coming back from the dead. Someone is genuinely forgiving the seemingly unforgivable. Someone is curing the incurable. You, me, some, one, and now. So I ask again, when is the season? Because there is no other when, there is only now. Happy Santa magic, everybody.